Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of The Hangout. I'm joined by the permanent guest, Sheikh Abdel Nasser Jengda.
I'm eating nachos, everybody.
He's eating nachos, everybody. Shout out to El Picante in Irving, Texas.
Solid.
For the nachos. Irving is, when I told Sheikh that we're getting, I got him some lunch from Irving.
I asked him if it had chaat masala in it.
Because everything in Irving is basically Hyderabadi. And so he thought that the nachos were going to be like Nihari nachos, which actually sounds amazing.
It really does.
But yeah. So if you hear someone chomping away, it's not me. Well, how are you, Sheikh?
I'm doing fantastic.
Are you doing fantastic because you're eating nachos?
Yeah, actually.
That's
what makes it so fantastic. I'm actually really tired, sleep deprived, been following the news, really worried about Trump appointing basically shayateen and jinn to his cabinet.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, I'm eating nachos right now, and so life is pretty good right now.
It's okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit, the nachos. No, we're going to talk a little bit about the political side of things, especially with the holidays coming up, Thanksgiving holidays. Lots of conversation with families bound to turn to politics, and so how do we manage that? But before we get to today's conversation, Sheikh, you were sharing with me this bit from the late night with the Colbert Show.
It just made me laugh a lot.
So set it up for us. What's he talking about here?
He's just talking about, actually it's politically related. One of the big stories that's gotten out after the election's over is half of the adults in the educated world in America get their news from Facebook. And apparently there's all these fake stories on Facebook. Like there was some ridiculous story about the FBI agent that was involved in investigating Hillary Clinton's emails was found dead in his home. And was it murder? Was it suicide? And it was a completely false story, and it was shared over 1 million times. So this stuff has really gotten out that this is just how stupid we are, and that's why Donald Trump is president and Rudy Giuliani is like the imam of your local masjid now. So this is why this is happening. So Stephen Colbert, who's been pretty solid. I've really enjoyed him over the years. So he had a really funny bit about that.
So what's he talking about with the bit?
He's just talking about where these fake stories on Facebook they come from.
So they're manufactured. There's like a factory basically.
Exactly.
Right? So let's listen then.
Now, Facebook CEO and Jesse Eisenberg impersonator Mark Zuckerberg has responded to the controversy saying to think Facebook influenced the election in any way is a pretty crazy idea. And he knows it's crazy because he read it on Facebook. So just where are these stories coming from? It turns out that 100 different sites came from teenagers in one small Macedonian town who were looking to make money online and found that the best way to generate shares on Facebook is to publish sensationalist and often false content that caters to Trump supporters. Which brings me to my new segment, Hey, Macedonian teens! Hey, Macedonian teens! Knock it off! Why can't you just do normal teenager stuff like put M80s in mailboxes?
Okay. So Sheikh, I walked into Qalam today, into our studio here in Studio Qalam C, and Sheikh just holds his phone. He's like, I know that you're running late. I know you have to go to Spain tomorrow and you have all these things, but you have to watch this. And actually, it was great.
I just love how he goes, just stops everything. Goes, hey, Macedonian teens.
They have the flag underneath. It's good. You should check out the clip. It's really funny, refreshing, and also unfortunate that comics have to be the voice of reason.
So ajib.
Political landscape. Yeah.
So ajib.
Nuts.
I believe it was Sheikh Hamza who talked about this a few years ago, where he kind of talked about the idea of comedy and jokesters. They were like court jesters.
Yeah.
And now they are basically some of the most intelligent, sensible, voices in our country right now.
Yeah.
Whether it be Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert or John Oliver or whoever. It's really ajib.
And John Oliver actually is through his mini little, almost satirical, humorous campaigns, actually affecting a lot of change.
Huge.
I remember there was one where he bought some student loan debt and paid it off or something like that. So actually incredible. Unfortunate, sad, sign of the times.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So we are now 1 week removed. Oh, to the day, actually.
Yeah.
No. 1 week, just about
Wednesday
from the election results, where the president-elect of this country now, Donald Trump, won the election. He won the electoral vote, and has now been sort of alluding to appointing different members of the staff of his office, his cabinet. He's been alluding, and the media has been reporting that he's going to be appointing to some pretty problematic people.
Yeah.
You have
Bannon.
Steve Bannon.
He's his chief strategist.
Yeah, who's Steve Bannon, for those of you who don't know, is the leader of what's become a really problematic news outlet. It's called Breitbart.
Yeah.
It's basically the pulpit or the member for this group known as the alt-right. So if you take like extreme bigotry, extreme white supremacy, extreme white nationalism, and you multiply it times 1,000,000, you get the alt-right. And so that's Steve Bannon for you in a nutshell. Basically actually believe, this is not a myth, that because he's white, his genes are better than anybody else.
Like his blue jeans?
His denim jeans, yeah. He wears Wrangler.
Brett Favre?
So, yeah. Rest in peace. Oh, he's not dead. Sorry. Brett Favre's still alive. But, yeah, so his genetics, okay, so his genetic makeup is better, which is obviously an incredibly
stupid,
just bigoted, stupid, problematic, anti-Islamic, anti-human sentiment. Mm-hmm. So that's one. Then you got Rudy Giuliani, who is actually a crazy person.
Golly.
And I don't mean that derogatorily. I'm just saying literally, I think he
seems unstable.
He's very unstable, and the most dangerous kind of unstable is when a person does not recognize that they need help, and they are, I mean, he just the way he talks, the way he reacts, the way he thinks. I'm genuinely concerned about his family and those close to him. But that's just the world that we live in.
He's going to be Secretary of State.
He's going to be Secretary of State. What an interesting replacement for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And then you got a bunch of others. You have a lot of local representatives who are very much against banning Sharia law and making immigration difficult and deporting people, hardworking American immigrants, and et cetera. So I don't want to really focus on the political side of things because I think we just need a break. I think everyone needs a break from politics. I think, we had some people over the other night, and we basically just made the rule, we're not going to talk about it. Like, we're going to talk about other things. And we ended up having a great time because we didn't talk about politics. So I don't want to talk about politics per se, but oftentimes in social gatherings, especially with family, politics does become a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
1 week from today, we're heading into Thanksgiving break. You got any plans, by the way, Thanksgiving break?
I do, actually. I'm going to be going on a family vacation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Where? To Turkey? To Turkey?
No, I'm gonna have turkey in Turkey. No, I'm actually going to Aruba.
Aruba?
Yeah.
What's going on in Aruba?
It's just an island, and it's the ocean, and I'm just gonna go hang out there for a week.
You go sit on the beach for a while?
That's it.
I mean, this is after like months of coming into Qalam basically
Every day.
6 days a week and working
every day
nonstop. So it's good. It's good. You get a little R&R.
Yeah, I'm gonna take me, my wife, and the kids are gonna go out there and just have fun, inshallah.
Okay, so y'all are gonna talk about politics.
No, we're not.
But for most people, Thanksgiving break, instead of running away to an island like you are, inshallah. Mashallah.
Mashallah.
Astaghfirullah.
Inshallah.
Astaghfirullah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Instead of doing that, most people get together with their family, meaning their extended family. So y'all are kind of, your family lives here, so you see each other often enough.
Yeah, we see each other a lot.
Yeah, so you guys are going to take a break. But most people, like, for example, my in-laws are coming that weekend. I'll be working while you're vacationing. I'll be in Spain.
You're welcome.
Qalam, Spain.
You're welcome.
Yeah, my boss here. I'm going to go on vacation. You go take a group of 45 people to Spain, okay? No, I'm obviously going to be enjoying it, but it's work nonetheless. But it's, alhamdulillah, it's hard work, but enjoyable work. So we'll be there for the actual day of Thanksgiving. I'll come back Friday, and my in-laws are going to be in town. And as we just, referenced earlier in the podcast episode, the conversation will inevitably gear towards politics and other things. And these are my in-laws. These are people that are coming in. And I wanted to kind of focus today's episode.
And you're not going to be able to make a rule there. You're not going to be able to tell your father-in-law that, hey, listen, new rule in my house. Nobody talks about Donald Trump here. He's going to be like, how about I take you in the backyard and I beat you?
That image is hilarious because I'm like really big. Okay. So I don't think that's how it would go exactly. But again, you're really giving me insight into what your kids' marriages would be like. Yeah, I'm excited for Miriam.
Listen, I understand even verbally we should be careful, but I got 2 daughters and I feel like threatening the lives of, their husbands and terrifying them, I think is a good thing.
You're going to have a rifle in the umbrella?
All the time.
Okay.
I'm just going to have a rifle next to the chair that I sit on all the time when they come over.
A rocking chair on the front porch?
Yeah, that's it. And there'll just be a rifle there and they're like, why don't you put that away? And it's like, I don't know.
You're just going to be like, you're like that guy from Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood.
So the question that I wanted to talk about today, or the topic that I think would be really relevant, especially preparing people for the holidays, spending time with extended family, people they don't see very often, that one of those subgroups are the in-laws. So we kind of made reference to my father-in-law and then how you're going to be. And the reason why those jokes tend to be a little bit darker is because of the... It's because of the culture of how we see in-laws.
Yeah. Outlaws.
Exactly. Right. In-law. I remember you had a great line, in-law interference.
Yeah. Like pass interference, in-law interference.
10 yards first out. So you have this this concept in our culture of in-laws are sort of like the bringers of sadness.
Yeah.
Like, what have you brought? What's your housewarming gift? They're like, something sad. I don't know, like a popsicle that melted already. Milk with no cereal, like something that's really sad.
Yeah.
So I thought we would spend some time today, just have a brief conversation about that and kind of unpackage that a little bit. A lot of young people come to us and seek advice, whether they are currently married or not married, regarding their in-laws.
Yeah.
And so I figured we'd start there, logically progressing through.
Well, I mean, even if somebody's not married yet, I mean, obviously they come from a home, they have a family, and so they've witnessed, just the in-law dynamic in regards to their own parents and their grandparents. And it's very, actually for children, when there's kind of a tense in-law situation involving their parents, for kids, it's very confusing and it's very troubling and it's very unnerving because
they're supposed to love their in-laws, or they're supposed to love grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even though mom is basically saying like how her mother-in-law is terrible and she makes her miserable and she tries to make her life difficult, but this kid is like, grandma? Question mark. So, but she's grandma. But I'm supposed to not like grandma, or you don't like grandma,
Absolutely,
or grandma doesn't like you, and it's just very confusing.
Yeah. So this is inevitably going to happen. Not only Thanksgiving break, but also the winter holidays coming up.
Yeah.
People are going to, bump into each other, cross paths. So let's go ahead and just process, I guess, through this. And, question number one that we get from a lot of people is, I'm not yet married. The first thing I guess that people think about is, how do I even anticipate? What do I look for? Like, what are things that I should look for in my in-laws? Because, there is this concept of when you get married, you're not just marrying a person, you're marrying their family, which I disagree with. I don't think you're marrying their family. I think you're marrying a person who belongs to a family.
Yeah, you're marrying into their family.
Yeah, and you might, I don't think you necessarily become a daughter or a son, but you become their son's spouse, right?
So see, the first thing here is that we just have to separate between a lot of cultural rhetoric and... I don't completely. It's okay. Slogans are just really weird and they're very problematic. So sloganeering is a huge problem in our community. So when people say like, oh, follow Islam, not culture. It's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from when you're saying that. You're trying to discard the problematic parts of culture. And I'm with you 100%. But also saying that Islam has no culture, Muslims don't have culture, we just have the Sunnah. That's also problematic because you just said that we're not human beings.
Yeah.
We're not social creatures. Every organization, every group, every gathering, collective of human beings do have a culture. And so a lot of saying that, Islam doesn't have any culture is part of also what got us in a lot of trouble as well, where we just denied our identity and such key parts of our identity as American Muslims for so long.
Yeah. We sort of floated in this weird, like,
Exactly.
ecosystem of nothingness.
Of nothingness.
Yeah.
We weren't Pakistani or Egyptian or Saudi or whatever. We weren't American, and it was just this weird no man's land. So, what sloganeering is really problematic, and that's why talking about culture in Islam becomes so difficult. But just for the sake of this particular discussion, we do have to kind of separate between cultural rhetoric and then what actually is Islam's dictates in regards to this particular issue of in-laws and their relationship. So a lot of this whole thing about like, when you marry into a family now, you're their son or you're their daughter, or just like their son or just like their daughter. No, you're not, because they didn't know you 6 months ago.
Yeah. Wow, that was quick. That was a quick wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, a year ago, they didn't know you. I mean, think about it, particularly if you meet somebody at school and you're trying to keep it mostly halal, and you kind of got to know that person for a couple of months,
By the way,
few months.
mostly halal, trademark. Trademark Sheikh Abdel Nasser Jangda.
I just gave you a t-shirt idea, bro.
I'm loving it.
Stop
If
it.
some millennial's going to put it together, it's going to be on Etsy for $47.
Exactly.
Sold out at ISNA.
So,
Mostly halal. It's like, what are you trying to say, you pervert? All right.
So you're trying to keep it as legit as possible, and so you got to know the person for a few months, maybe a semester, maybe 2 semesters, and you told your family there was no real obstacle to it. Both of y'all were graduating next semester, so you went ahead and you got married, right? So 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever. But my point is just simply to just suggest the idea that you're just like my son now or my daughter now. It's like, no, because first of all, you and your wife, or the in-laws, y'all gave birth to your son, to your daughter, to your kids. You raised them. You've known them their entire lives. And you just met this person not too long ago. So it's just an illogical statement to begin with.
I think what it's trying to communicate something, but I think what happens with slogans, and I like the way that you put that, slogans are trying to reduce very, very complex and very nuanced ideas into a small sentence.
Make America great again.
Is one of the greatest slogans, because everyone has a different definition of what great is.
Yeah.
So they fit into this funnel. Anyways, we're not talking about
Correct.
politics. I told you this. False.
False.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail. Okay. Let's stop.
All right.
Let's regroup.
Let's behave.
Behave. Get off my lawn.
Stop being a nasty person.
So, what a nasty man. Okay. So, back to the point, which is that, this slogan of you're my daughter, you're my son, that the in-laws might be saying to their daughter or son-in-law, it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of affection. However, sometimes in our community, we have a problem with turning things literal.
Yeah.
It goes from figurative to literal. And what ends up happening is a person can be disappointed or upset because expectations are based off of those things. So, for example, if I go to my mother-in-law and I say, Ammu, because she's Bengali, right? Shout out to my Bengas. I say, Ammu, I'm just like your son. Obviously, I'm going to do everything in my power to serve my wife's family, be with them, etc. But there are simply some things that I may not be able to do as her son-in-law, and some of them are pretty much very Islamic, practical things. Some areas, some conversations that I actually should stay away from because they're very intimate family conversations. And if she interprets it literally, or if I interpret it literally, I could end up getting her feelings hurt or my feelings hurt. Same the other way around. If one of the in-laws tells their new daughter-in-law, you're just like my daughter.
Yeah.
And then they notice that they bought their own daughter, their real, actual biological daughter, a car. And they're like, wait a minute. Why do they keep buying her things and don't buy me? Well, you're not their actual daughter, right?
Yeah.
You're not actually a financial responsibility for them. And
here's a dynamic, all right?
The sloganing hurts expectations. Go ahead.
I go to my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
I walk into the house.
Mm-hmm.
I lay down on the couch. And I go, Mom!
The meatloaf.
I want food!
Yeah.
Right? And she's just, me and my mom were really, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm the oldest. I'm the first child. So it's a lot of fun. So she'll be playful. She'll be like, yeah, you can get up and get it yourself. And I'll be like, food! I'll just keep on screaming in response to everything she's telling me. And eventually she'll, get me some food out and I'll get up and go sit with her and eat food and talk to her and stuff like that. Now imagine me walking into my mother-in-law's house,
Yes,
laying
not
down
like
on
that.
the couch and screaming, food!
No, there's-
She'll call my wife and be like, your husband has gone insane.
Yeah. No, there's there's always a level of formality
Yeah.
that will always be there, even if it's 1%.
Sure.
But with your own family, it's obviously going to be keeping it
100?
100. Exactly.
With the D and the R clearly pronounced.
100.
Listen, children, pronounce your D's and pronounce your R's. Hund red.
Yeah, if you don't pronounce your D's and R's,
100.
how will you ever become doctor?
No D's, no R's, no doctor.
That's it.
That's right.
100 is the enemy of all uncles and aunties out there. Okay, so that's one question that we get very frequently, and I think that the real response will be when you're looking for that relationship, make sure you don't set your expectations to be literally this person's child.
Yeah, unrealistic.
And you may also have to watch your tongue. You know, there's always those interesting moments.
My mom still, and again, it's kind of playful because obviously I'm an old man now, but she'll still smack me upside the head.
Yeah.
She's like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if I'm just kind of like, I'm like, hey, I was like, so jahil, right? The other day I was like eating something at her house and I was like, did somebody challenge you to cook this while you were blindfolded? And she was like, what does that mean? I was like,
bad.
I was like, cause it doesn't taste that great. And she just reached across and just whap on the head, right?
Oh my God.
And I enjoyed it. It's just my way of playing around with her. And, I wouldn't tolerate, okay, I might be the one kind of being like, but you said I was like your son. Why are you like treating me differently? If my mother-in-law reached out and smacked me upside the head, I don't know if I'd ever speak to her ever again. I wouldn't know how to process that.
It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. And I think,
Yeah.
For example, like you can make fun of your brother in ways that I can't.
Absolutely.
Even though I might say the exact same thing, it's different. He's your
Yes.
brother.
Yes.
Right? Same with even your wife.
Yes.
And a lot of fights between couples end up being because one of the spouses, so the husband or the wife, will say about their in-laws things that they've heard their spouse say about their own parents, but
Yeah.
you can't repeat that.
Yeah, remember you were saying about your mom and how annoying she is? Listen.
You basically are just,
Listen,
why
wait,
don't you just
wait,
get
wait. I have
into a
public service
tuxedo,
announcement,
get into a
public-
tuxedo and enter your casket at that moment.
Listen, brothers. I know you've done it.
Yeah.
Because you're a dummy.
Yeah.
And if you did it, whatever happened to you afterwards, you completely deserved it.
Look at your hands. You see that red paint? Guilty.
You completely deserved
Caught red-handed.
whatever happened to you when you said to your wife, yeah, remember you were saying how annoying your mom is? You just died.
Or if the brother is talking about how
He's like, wait, am I in heaven?
Yeah, exactly. Or if the brother's talking about how useless he feels, maybe like one of his siblings is, it's not your place, sisters, to speak about how, for example, like, oh, you said that, so I can say it too. There is a little bit of a difference there between the two. So going back now, getting on track, before marriage, when people are sort of like in that realm of looking and sort of like proposing and courting and rishtas and all that kind of stuff, what are some things that are normal? What are some things that are normal dynamics in that search and that relationship? So girls, there's a girl and a guy that are being proposed to one another. They get to know each other. They, keeping it mostly halal.
Mostly.
Trademark Sheikh Al-Nasr Jangda. And, they might go bowling with their families or something. Just keep it really, social.
100?
No, not there.
Oh,
Wrong.
sorry.
It's okay.
I'm trying.
You're still pretty woke today, though. So, they go out and then let's say they go to dinner. There's like a nice family dinner. What are some things that are overreactions? And what are some legitimate concerns that a person should have? And maybe you can share some stories, some anonymous stories. Okay.
I mean, akhlaq, character. Like paying a lot of attention to how this prospective spouse of yours interacts with their family members. Particularly, take into consideration if maybe the family's being very abusive and disrespectful, or maybe the prospective spouse, the potential spouse, the person you're interested in is being disrespectful and rude and arrogant and inconsiderate towards their own family. Keep in mind, y'all are out on this, exploratory kind of meeting of the families type situation. everyone knows this is when you are supposed to be on your best behavior.
Yeah.
Now think about what that means when somebody acts like that and that's their best behavior.
It's human nature. Like, and they might be like, well, I'm just being who I am. It's like, no, everybody is concerned about first impressions.
Absolutely.
Every single person.
And if they're being that way at that time, I remember this one brother I knew really well. He called me and he was kind of like, I have a question. I went with my sister, our family, for my sister, to meet this family, and she knew the guy and interested, and got the families involved. So we went over to their place, and we met with them. And I wanted to ask you, something happened. The guy was being like really abrasive and mean and rude towards like his mother-in-law and his sister, towards his mother and his sister, and I found it really strange. So I wanted to get your input on it. I was like, input about what? You need to just be like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Right? You need to just end that situation quickly and immediately. If he's that disrespectful towards his own mother, and they know they're supposed to be on their best behavior, then where do you think that's going to lead to? So that's just one example, but the point is mainly that you're really looking for a lot of akhlaq. You're looking for decency.
What about your in-laws? So like the guy's parents, like
you're just
keeping an eye out for their akhlaq too?
Yeah, of course.
Or the girl's parents in this case, either way.
Yeah, either way. You're just looking at the akhlaq, meaning how do they speak to one another and how do they speak to other people?
Like hold the door open,
just polite.
Say thank you.
Exactly. Are they being condescending? Are they being rude? Are they being obnoxious? If they can't, that's my point. If somebody can't behave, or that's their definition of good, their best behavior, their good behavior, this does not look like a good situation.
Now, what are some overreactions? So we have on one side the keeping an eye out for people's character, but what are some things that you've seen or you've heard people come to you and say, man, I had this proposal dinner the other night, or I met these family and they just did this and I knew, and you're just like in your head you're kind of like, that's a little bit of an overreaction.
Yeah.
Any situations, any things that are maybe,
I think determining a lot about a person's aside from of course blatant violations, like somebody's just sitting there and just, starts drinking a beer at the dinner table, right? That's different. But otherwise, judgments in terms of a person's, spirituality. I've seen tons of overreactions in that department.
Can you explain? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's kind of like there'll be, a conversation will be going on and maybe some conversation will come up about some social issue or this and that. And they'll share some thoughts or some opinions and they'll kind of be like, maybe it'll come up about, should women have equal pay or something will come up.
Be able to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something will come up maybe about, just right now what we're seeing, in terms of civil rights and just public safety and protecting people from hatred and hate speech. And they'll be like, it's really important whether it be we're talking about women or Latinos or blacks or Muslims or, LGBT community members like gay people. And immediately like this whole assessment will occur about the spirituality and the religiousness or lack thereof of this person.
Oh, like you support gay people?
Yeah, like, they must not be religious at all.
Yeah.
That tells me I don't even know if they pray.
Yeah.
It's like, how did we just get here?
Or someone identifies like as a Democrat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that means
identify.
you support gay people.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of just drastic overreactions and assumptions being made about people's spirituality. Culture is another one. Just making all types of assumptions about what kind of culture they have or what kind of culture they come from, what the culture of their home or their family is.
And this is becoming increasingly important because oftentimes you have, to give a sports reference, you have like a fumble here, a fumble of cultural languages.
Yeah.
So for example, my mother's Egyptian, my father is a, white Irish American convert to Islam. And my dad had to sort of take a crash course in Egyptian culture. And there are some things in Egyptian culture that might completely contradict what he was raised with. I'll give you an example, actually, that's really, really relevant. I was at an Islamic school, teaching at one point in my life and in the community that I was working in. And one of the kids was just acting a fool, hardcore, just ridiculous. So I pulled him out of the class, and I kind of wanted to talk to him. And as I was speaking to him, he was from, the Indian subcontinent, and he wouldn't look at me. He would just look down. And so I was like talking to him, like trying to like ask him what's up, remind him, kind of like, reprimand him a little bit. And he wouldn't look at me. And according to my cultural language, where my dad would raise, my dad, if he was talking to you, you looked at him. Yeah. Right? Because looking at somebody in the culture that my dad grew up in was a sign of respect and a sign of acknowledging that I know you're talking to me. So I look at this young man and I say to him, I say, excuse me, is there a reason you're not looking at me? And he goes, because I'm in trouble. Yeah. And you're quote unquote, I wasn't yelling, but he, said, you're yelling at me. And I was like, oh, because in his culture, yes, when you're being yelled at, you don't dare look at the person who's yelling at you.
Yeah, like it's, what's the name?
It's disrespectful.
Yeah, I was going through in the hadith where Amr bin al-As says when he became Muslim and he was kind of ashamed about having fought the Prophet ﷺ, the Muslims before, he said, I just felt like I couldn't look up at him.
Exactly. Yeah. And even some of the narrations where they said like some of the companions never looked directly at the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ.
Like looked into his eyes.
Whereas for us in our culture in America now, like looking at somebody is a sign of admiration. Yeah. You just exactly, this is actually on Umrah. I always tell you this, that it's out of respect and out of, following the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you're making tawaf, you're actually supposed to look ahead. Yes. And not to your left, which is the Kaaba. But for me, I struggle with that. Yeah. Because I just
want to stare at it.
I'm only here for a few days, right? You just kind of want to look at it. So that's how cultural languages can become, there can be a fumble.
Exactly.
And even within families, let's say both of you are Pakistani or both of you are Palestinian or both of you are African American. There's family cultures.
I've seen all types of weird things. Yeah. Where somebody maybe kind of scoop some rice or some food into their plate before. So this guy with his family's over at this girl's family's place for marriage proposal reasons, and the guy just kind of scoops out some rice and gets some food before the girl's dad did or before his own dad did.
Game over.
And the girl's family's watching this and they're kind of like
it's like they mark an X on the clipboard.
Just one big X. Yeah. It's like proposal, yes or no. They cross the box.
I've seen this a lot. Yeah. I've seen sometimes because a sister didn't buy birthday gifts for her fiance's siblings, that all of a sudden now it's like a big deal.
I got lost, by the way, in between there.
A sister.
Okay.
A woman.
Yes.
Did not buy birthday gifts.
Got it.
For the male fiance.
Okay.
As opposed to the female fiancette. Okay, so the male fiance, she didn't buy gifts for his siblings for their birthdays.
Wow.
Or no, for Eid. Sorry, for Eid.
Got it.
Because they had just gotten engaged. It was like very... Now, okay, in retrospect, maybe something good to do, but absolutely not necessary. I don't even think they were actually properly engaged.
I probably wouldn't like the gift that my siblings' fiance would buy.
It'd probably just be like an ugly sweater.
Yeah, knowing Faisal, it'd be like something super nerdy, and I wouldn't like it.
I want to quote a hadith right now so bad, but Lo uhdiya.
Yeah,
the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu said, La qabiltu. If I was given a dry bone, anything. I would accept it.
That's very true.
Interesting. I'm trying to just contrast that with the statement you just made.
About Faisal.
Shout out to Faisal. So those issues, people, for example, on the guy's side, they really strongly overreacted to the girl, the new fiance, not even really like codified fiance, just kind of like they were talking.
Yeah.
At what level now are you obligated to buy gifts? And so she didn't know. She didn't do it, unfortunately. And guy's family overreacted. And
end of story.
End of story. So when you're going into this, and that's what I was going to say, when you're going into this phase, you have these really good connections and you have these horrible fumbles. And I think what a lot of people oftentimes end up
butt fumbles
failing to realize. Okay.
I had to do it.
Mark
it's right
Sanchez,
there.
I know.
Yeah, it's a football reference, so everybody get your mind out the gutter. It's a football reference. You can look it up. Mark Sanchez, butt fumble.
Okay. Don't look it up. It just takes your word for it. You have these people that basically they get really, really distraught because things ended, maybe because of this fumble. But Sheikh Al Nasser, you just said, good for her.
Good for her.
So if either side,
alhamdulillah, she needs to just thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protecting her.
If either side feels like the process ended because of a silly reason, then what I'll tell you as a marriage counselor is
what deuces? Is that what the kids
Yeah, deuces. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm
deuces.
just checking. I
You,
don't know a lot
you
of
have
this
to, You have
stuff.
to chuck them. Chuck the deuces.
Okay.
Okay?
It's good to know.
So it's a great, great sign of Allah's protection over you.
Well, like our teacher used to kind of say that it's a reminder that of how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you and how much Allah wants khair for you. I was just going over the hadith of Khalid bin Walid yesterday in the seerah class, and he says, لَمَّا أَرَادَ بِي اللَّهُ خَيْرًا. When God wanted good for me, this is what happened.
And remember that
You have to think about it that way. Allah wanted good for you.
that can come either in the way of addition or subtraction.
Oh, absolutely.
So Allah wanting good
addition
for somebody.
by subtraction.
Exactly. Allah wanting good for somebody can come in the form of Him removing something
Alhamdulillah.
from a person's life. And so if you're out there, you're single, you're looking, remember to keep your expectations tempered. Remember that you may have cultural language differences. You may have different understandings of what is a good way of expressing gratitude and thanks and comfort. You know, sometimes people, like you said, if I'm ultra comfortable with somebody, then it may slip my mind to feed them first before getting food for myself. You know, if like, for example, if someone like a good friend of mine, like Ubaidullah, comes over, the host in me should know to give him food first, but because we're close, I may forget and I may just kind of like start eating.
Right.
Or wait till he's seated to begin eating as well. Things like that when you're close to somebody. So if somebody perhaps at maybe the last, proposal dinner spoons food for themselves first, don't read that as a sign that it's just horrible and this person's a horrible human being. Don't overreact. However, at the other side, if you do feel like there is some maybe spiritual judgment or some sort of weird kind of vibes or, even verbal abuse or emotional weirdness, and things don't go well, then Allah Ta'ala has saved you from that.
We didn't want to talk about this in this particular episode, but it just seems like it's right here. Look up courtship in the dictionary. Like that is when you're courting someone. Right? Like we don't actually, but I'm just borrowing terminology, kind of verbiage from our culture. They talk about wining and dining people, like a client or a customer or an athlete if you're an agent or an athlete if you're a team. And therefore courtship is in marriage as well. Courtship is about putting on your best possible face, your best possible character, and making the best possible impression that you can. Right? And if somebody is being abusive during that time,
somebody meaning the family can be it that way as well.
The family, the potential spouse even,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We're not talking about that right now in terms of actual selection process, but the family and even particularly the potential spouse, run for the hills.
Run for the hills. Why do you think in-laws are known as problematic? Just from the get-go. Like when people say the phrase in-laws, they don't necessarily
Outlaw.
They don't necessarily speak about it positively. It always has this negative connotation to it, as far as I can remember.
It's really funny, even the in Arabic, like aqarib, so kind of like we do the whole play on word like in-law, outlaw. In Arabic, aqarib, which means relatives. If you change the alif to an ayn, aqarib, it means scorpions.
Oh my God.
It's really interesting. Really interesting. It's cross-cultural.
The 3 Arabic nerds right now that are listening to this are like, that's phenomenal.
On
Everyone
the
else,
Hangout?
everyone else is just like, what is going on?
But
It's probably the same 3 people that are mad that we use music for lead-ins.
that's probably it.
Okay.
But
why do you think that culture exists?
I don't know. It's okay. A few ideas, but it's very much cross-cultural. So
It's universal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You find, that's why I gave you the Arabic example. And, it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ as well. Sahaba would come to the Prophet ﷺ with like family drama, in-law drama, and all this kind of stuff. So this has been around as in-law drama is as old as marriage, the institution of marriage itself. So I think it comes from a couple of different places. I do think that it's situations where people are very in closer proximity to one another. They're more prone to it. People get in each other's way more. Also understand what marriage is. Marriage is just this drastic, completely redefining of everything in one person's life. So somebody goes from being primarily a son to now being a husband. And that's his primary identification now. He's first and foremost a husband. Yes, I understand he was first a son. I get all that. And please, nobody right now, anybody who's thinking about quoting any ayat of the Quran to me about like the rights of the parents, mashallah, you're probably absolutely right, but you're actually wrong because...
It doesn't seem possible, actually, what you just said.
I just don't want to be disrespectful. Absolutely. Quote the Quran and, hopefully you know something that I don't know so I can benefit from you and I can learn from you. I just, I've been around this topic for a long time and I've spoken to a lot of people and a lot of teachers and ulama, senior scholars on this issue. And, the primary identification and the primary responsibility, because what defines us is our responsibilities. The primary responsibility of that person becomes of being a spouse, being a husband, being a wife.
What's mas'uliyah?
Exactly.
What they're going to be asked about.
Responsibility.
Yeah. And
so when that restructuring happens, then obviously there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of adjustment and kind of organizing things that's required, and that's never easy. That's never comfortable. That's not a lot of fun, and things happen, and people start to act out, and people start to kind of lose their bearings, and that's where a lot of this in-law drama comes from.
So you just mentioned the universality of it. Is it safe to say that everybody has some degree of in-law difficulty?
I believe so.
Or let's say has.
Yes.
Has, have, or will have.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any exceptions. Like I've seen some situations, alhamdulillah, even my own situation as well, very good and calm and peaceful and very helpful and etc. But I mean, absolutely, everyone's got something.
Everyone's going to get offended.
Always.
Everyone's going to get their feelings hurt.
Sure.
So what are some ways that we can repair relationships? Because this Thanksgiving, we started talking about the fact that this holiday season, we're going to reconnect with a lot of people that we don't see very often.
Yeah.
And walking into this gathering, walking into this dinner, or walking into this weekend, or the holiday weekend, or any weekend really, there's going to be some scabs. There's going to be some scars, some wounds, some words that were said.
Yeah.
Some birthdays that were ignored, or whatever it might be. How do we, as individuals, whether you're the mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, whoever, how do we start to repair these relationships, or at least
brother-in-law, sister-in-law,
make them serviceable?
Yeah,
because I think one of the most tragic things I've seen in my work as an imam and kind of like with communities is, subhanallah, man. I mean, we've talked. I've asked for your advice on how to handle these situations before, but literally, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years go by without one word being said between family. And I've seen it across the board. The craziest thing I've seen, a daughter and her own mother, not her mother-in-law, didn't talk because her husband didn't like her mom. So she gets married. Her husband says, "I don't like your mom." Basically she destroyed her own relationship with her mother because her husband was, not really understanding. And, but that was absolutely mind-blowing to me. Like, you would sacrifice. I mean, look, we all have issues with our parents in terms of growing up and fights and arguments and discipline and all that stuff. We all have those great memories. But destroying the relationship, like ending it completely. So the point I'm trying to make is we've seen it across the board. It impacts everybody. What are some universal practical steps towards trying to repair that relationship? Some things that you've seen work.
So again, it comes back to the prophetic character and the akhlaq. And one of the things that I'll mention here is that one of the things that makes a lot of these in-law relationships very problematic and really kind of gets them into bad places and bad situations to begin with. And I know it's easier to pick on the in-laws. If you're kind of the younger newlywed, it's easier to kind of blame the in-laws, but really a lot of times blame just needs to be placed where it's due, where it's deserved. And the Quran talks about that the primary role of the in-laws is to be hakama min ahlihi wa hakama min ahliha. They're supposed to be wise and sage and helpful and moderate and balanced, and they're actually supposed to help quell disagreements between the married couple, between the newlyweds, not create the arguments between them. So a lot of blame does go with them, where they overstep their boundaries, they impose themselves upon them. You know, the idea about how when a man marries a woman, then his parents become her responsibility and her problem. That is nowhere stated in our deen, in our sharia, in our religion, anywhere. His parents are his responsibility and his duty, his obligation, and her parents are her responsibility and her obligation. So when these things are not understood and we don't have mature, responsible, sane attitudes about these types of things, then bad things happen, and now problematic dynamics sometimes are created. So now how do you repair? The recommendation I have is very, very simple. And that is, and I'm going to say some things kind of bluntly here. Let's just say, okay, just kind of the role-playing sense. Zayd is married to Maryam. Zayd and Maryam are a couple. Zayd does not like Maryam's dad. Zayd, here's the part now.
Can we give Maryam's dad a name? Yasin.
Nasser?
No. Oh.
Hey, I'm okay because I'm going to punch Zayd in the face.
Is there a boy at school named Zayd that Maryam's talking about?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll call Maryam's dad is Ahmed.
Ahmed,
okay. So Zayd does not like Maryam's dad, Ahmed. Brother Ahmed and Zayd just don't see eye to eye. Okay. And Zayd doesn't like Brother Ahmed, Maryam's dad, his father-in-law. Here's the part now. Zayd doesn't have to like Brother Ahmed. He just has to respect him.
What does that look like, by the way?
What that looks like is this, and this is the thing I was going to say. So he doesn't have to like him, but he has to respect him. What Zayd has to channel in that moment, what Zayd has to think to himself in that moment is, Ahmed, Brother Ahmed, Ammu Ahmed, Ahmed uncle, whatever he decides to call him, okay? I just don't like him. We don't get along. We don't see eye to eye. It's not a good situation. However, Ahmed is Maryam's father. He is the father of the love of my life. He was, before me, the most important man in her life. He's the one who raised her. He's the one who loved her. He's the one who cared for her, bounced her on his knee, played with her, raised her, spoiled her, just poured so much, time and energy and effort into making her the amazing woman that she is. I just gotta respect him. And I just have to keep in mind that if making Maryam happy is the part of it's one of the most important things to me is making Maryam happy, then me being nice and respectful to her father, Brother Ahmed, who I would love to punch in the throat right now, respecting him and treating him with a modicum of respect will make her happy, which will make me happy. And that's very it. It's mind over matter. It's a very simple, logical process.
I kind of started to like Uncle Ahmed as you were describing him. What a great dad he was.
Really? He might be a great dad and make a terrible father-in-law. That's a thing.
That's possible.
Of course.
And I think that, for a lot of people, they just need to put it with that lens.
I want to be a terrible father-in-law.
That's not nice. I look forward to counseling your children. I'll start billing you now. No, I think a lot of people need to put it with that lens, which is that this is the parent or the mother or father of, this person who's so important to me, my spouse. Yes. And it becomes a lot easier. It really does. You really put some sort of perspective on it. I think one of the things.
Put respect on it?
Just don't. Just don't. One of the things that I'll recommend to people is that oftentimes all of your relationships either win or lose basically because of what's going on inside of you. All of us have been able to negotiate and take care of relationships with people that we didn't necessarily admire because we knew that the circumstances dictated it. You might have a boss at work that you're not a big fan of. But because he's your boss or she's your boss, you are going to have to make it work, make the relationship work. You might have coworkers or teammates, etc. And because of the nature of your job or your work, you're going to have to make it work. Neighbors, things like that. It's no different with family relationships. You guys are a part of a team. You're a part of a unit. And your in-laws are now a new part of that unit. And it doesn't matter what feelings you may or may not have. The circumstances dictate that you have to make it work. So what I'm trying to get at here is oftentimes we find the internal struggle of looking down on somebody or being, egotistical and kind of thinking that, well, they should treat me this way or I deserve to be treated this way. And a lot of times, some people might be thinking right now about their in-laws, but a lot of times youngsters, we do this to our parents, or we do this to I might do this to my spouse's parents, and they should respect me and they should treat me a certain way. There's no doubt whatsoever that respect and love are two very, very essential foundations to a great relationship. However, that being said, it still is part of the Islamic personality to be able to function in a relationship with somebody, even if they may have done you wrong a couple times. So your mother-in-law may have said something that may have hurt you. Your father-in-law may have said something that may have hurt you. Your son-in-law may have done something that may have bothered you as the father. It's part of the Islamic personality to be able to, number one, make an excuse for that person. Try to understand where they're coming from. Number two, to forgive them. Forgive them. Number three is to not put yourself in such a position where you demand that people basically treat you like a king all the time or a queen all the time. And with that sort of like self-check, I think a lot of people will be able to, and it's tough. It's easily said, tough to practice.
Sure.
You'll be able to really, really, hopefully, restructure successfully your relationship with your in-laws.
The Prophet in the narration, he actually talks about wa'fu amman zalamak. Forgive, overlook the person who's done wrong to you. Sil man qata'ak. Join relations with a family member who's been trying to sever relations with you. A'ti man ahramak. Give to somebody who's trying to deprive or take away or keep away something from you. Ahsin man asa'a ilayk. Do good to somebody who's doing wrong or bad to you. And one of my teachers used to explain it this way, explaining what akhlaq were. He said that akhlaq is not just simply doing good to somebody who is good to you. That's just called being like a creature. Mm-hmm. Because he said an animal, a dog, you put some scraps in front of a dog, it'll wag its tail and thank you and whimper in front of you. A cat, you give it a treat or something, it'll come and purr and like rub up against you. Mm-hmm. So animals know how to do that. But real akhlaq and character is to be able to be good to somebody who is not good to you.
And Imam Ghazali talks about this all the time when he talks about, do you only do nice things for people so that they'll return it? Do you only visit somebody who's sick so that when you're sick, you'll get visited? And he says basically, what Imam Ghazali says is, that's not really a relationship. That's a business transaction. And
I'll tell you something else. This is really ajib. If that is what you do, more often than not, if, again, you're fortunate and you're blessed, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has love for you, that Allah is trying to teach you a lesson, you'll find if you're doing those for those reasons, that actually won't result in that.
It won't.
Nobody will come visit you when you are sick. And that's to teach you a lesson that because you were doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I know, subhanAllah, man, I know in-laws who live in the same city and they don't invite each other to each other's homes because why? Or one doesn't invite the other to the home because, we invited them last time and they haven't invited us back, so we're not going to invite them anymore.
Wow.
Why do we spoil our generosity? Why do we do it? Like, you're being generous, you're hosting people, being hospitable and being a host of your guests is one of the best things you can do as a Muslim. Why am I spoiling my generosity by predicating it upon?
It just seems so exhausting to live life that way.
It does. Absolutely. May Allah protect us. I think that, this episode can go on forever. It's already been about almost an hour. What is one thing I want to conclude for our listeners? This is part of, by the way, a bigger series called The Modern Muslim Family that we're going to be doing. but we just thought that with Thanksgiving coming up, the holidays around the corner, people are going to be seeing a lot of family that they don't see very often. So let's jumpstart it with a conversation about in-laws. What's one thing that every in-law should do this Thanksgiving with their in-laws? So I'm a son-in-law. I'll give you my example.
Okay.
I'm a son-in-law. My wife's parents are coming to town. What should I do?
Just sit and have a conversation.
So spend time.
That's it.
Put the phones away.
Yeah, put the phones away. Just try to remove the distractions. Turkey Day, there's a bunch of football on, and it's easier to just kind of keep the TV on and allow it to be a barrier.
Oh, man, you know my trick so well. Leave the football in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But just kind of put everything aside, just kind of sit face to face and just try to have a meaningful conversation, even if it's just going to be 20 minutes, meaningful, straight, kind of looking straight at one another, just having a direct conversation about their job, their work, their family, their community, their friends, what's going on in their life, how's their health, how's their job, just.
I have another great topic.
Yeah.
Just tell me about your growing up.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people love talking about that kind of stuff.
A lot of wisdom to share.
Oh, yeah, and a lot to learn.
A lot of wisdom.
Tell me about college.
A lot of wisdom.
And so if you're sitting with someone who's older than you, your father-in-law, you can, a lot of people say, I don't know what to talk to him about.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to speak to him.
Yeah.
Just ask him to tell you stories.
Yeah.
Just be like, what was it like? And with this political situation now, you have a lot to go off of.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced anything this crazy in politics before?
Yeah.
Then just listen.
Yeah.
Listen for 5-10 minutes. It'll make them happy. You'll be happy because you're making them happy, and your spouse will be happy.
Absolutely.
Everyone's happy.
Absolutely.
And you win. So spend some quality time. What's one thing you should not do? And it can't be the opposite of what you just said. You're like, don't spend time. What's one thing that you shouldn't do?
I'll tell you. What you should not do is retaliate.
Oh, interesting.
You're not going to be able to stop some people from just pushing some of your buttons, saying some things that bother you, doing something that you do not like, but you cannot respond and retaliate at all.
That's very difficult.
Extremely.
That's probably the toughest thing.
Extremely.
Especially because we love to talk back, our generation especially.
Yeah, or just even the passive aggressive stuff.
Yeah.
Just kind of just stomping over and just kind of like with a little extra oomph.
Passing the gravy.
Yeah, or they put the cup down, the coffee thing down on the coffee table, and you got coasters there for a reason, and you're just kind of going there and just kind of putting the coaster and kind of putting the mug on top of the coaster. No, don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's a stupid coffee table. I don't care how nice your coffee table is. It's a stupid coffee table. But what you could do is just start a fight for no good reason. And this is going to sound so dramatic. And if sometimes experience and knowledge, it's a burden. But 3 years later, when you're sitting there, having serious troubles in your marriage, you'll regret that coffee cup coaster move.
Yeah.
You'll regret that.
All for a little flash of ego.
Yeah.
Happiness. I got him back.
Exactly.
One thing I think that people should definitely try to do is serve their in-laws this weekend.
Very nice.
It might be something as small. I know for me, I'm a big coffee guy.
Yeah.
If you follow me on Instagram, it's coffee and cats basically my entire
Pretty
life.
much.
A little bit of Islam, but coffee and cats. I know when my father-in-law comes, he doesn't even drink coffee ever. But when he comes to visit us in Dallas, he loves having, he calls it like Abdel Rahman's coffee because I put like milk and stuff, the lattes and whatever.
Yeah.
So, again, it might be a little bit early for me. It might be tiring. I might be busy. I'm going to try to make them all cups of coffee when they want, be the barista in my house. So serve. And older in-laws, if you're coming to visit or if your kids are coming to visit you, serve them. I know that sometimes we say, no, I'm older, they should serve me. Everyone should serve each other in some different way or capacity. It could be something even – my mother-in-law, I love when my mother-in-law comes and visits.
Yeah.
We actually fly her down to visit us. Same with my mom and my dad. But my mother-in-law, because of that whole stereotype, because when she comes down – man, we're eating good.
Yeah.
We're eating good in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
She's cooking up a storm, and she's taking orders. What do you guys want to eat tonight? that kind of service, it makes you so beloved to those that you're serving.
If somebody is listening who themselves is kind of like an older, father-in-law, mother-in-law, don't also underestimate the fact that when your kid and their spouse, however it is, your son, your daughter, and then their spouse, when they show up, when they come over, that day that they come over, maybe it's Thursday, maybe it's Friday, maybe it's Saturday, when they do come over, just smiling, saying salam, and giving a hug and kind of a pat on the back, kind of an arm around the shoulder, saying it's really nice to see you. You don't understand how much that will mean.
Especially if it's like your child or your in-law, like son-in-law, daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
You greet them, you grab their bags.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Just starting off with the right foot.
Just a smile, an arm around the shoulder, just a hug, just a father-in-law kind of hugging his son-in-law, saying like, thank you very much for coming. We're so happy to have you. It's nice to see you. You should come more often. The mother-in-law kind of like welcoming in the daughter-in-law, like, hey, how's it going? Really happy to see you. You look really nice today. Just a little compliment goes a really, really long way, because sometimes the older in-laws, they have their own insecurities. They have their own worries that these kids, they don't respect us and, and et cetera, et cetera. What you don't understand is that your son-in-law, your daughter-in-law, they have their own insecurities, that my father-in-law or my mother-in-law hates me.
Which one of you is going to begin to repair?
Yeah. And the Prophet said, وَخَيْرُهُمَا الَّذِي يَبْدَأُ بِالسَّلَامِ. The better of the two is the one who starts the reconciliation process.
It's actually interesting when you look at the Imam Ghazali's book on the rights of companionship. Basically, to sum it up, essentially all of the points lead back to one thing, that is preserving the honor and dignity of your brother or sister.
Yeah, another human being.
You're not, and what do you, when you rush to greet someone instead of waiting for them to greet you, you're preserving their dignity, because you're not making them walk over to you. Right. You're running to them. They feel special. As far as my don't remember, and what I mean by that is don't bring back old grudges. Do not remember the old fights, the old arguments, don't remember those things, because when you remember those things, you see everything, every statement, every action in the lens of that thing.
Yeah.
So your father-in-law might have called you lazy, and you might have been hurt by that. And then when he asks you to help him carry the garbage out after dinner, you might be thinking, man, this is because he thinks I'm lazy. He's making me carry the garbage out. But really, you're just acting like a crazy person. He's just asking for help.
Yeah.
When you remember those things, it taints your ability to start new.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do yourself a favor and forget.
Yeah.
Just even temporarily. It's for a couple days. Forget. Have a good time. Restart, refresh, and inshallah you'll be able to build where you never thought possible with your in-laws.
Yeah.
Sheikh Nasser, thank you always. It's a pleasure being with you here on the Hangout. Thank you guys for coming to hang out with us. Every Thursday morning, come and join us, inshallah, for the Qalam Hangout. Although next Thursday, I will be in Spain.
Yep.
So we'll be taking a nice little Thanksgiving break. And we'll see you guys, inshallah, in a couple weeks from now, the week after Thanksgiving.
Sounds good.
Remember, every Thursday morning, come hang out with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.